Hi, everybody. How are you? I'm honored and I'm so happy to be here. I've met some incredible people, from speakers to participants at this point, and I'm going to take you through very different subject matter, more so on the talent side. So the first thing I'd love to see is, are there any hiring managers in the room? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, a good amount. And then, are there people here who actually are in HR or talent operations? Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to gear this in two ways, because who knows, you might become a hiring manager. So this is a talk that I've given to quite a few C-level panelists, and I'll just keep going. So hi, this is who I am. Very proud City College alumni, public school, and I represent Rutgers Coding Boot Camp. I'm their career director. My role is duplicitous. What I do is ensure that our very diverse population of students have access to career resources like resume building and networking, and even just help them overcome imposter syndrome, which maybe some of you in the room also familiarize with. And then on the other side, I advise a startup called Pan American Voyages. It's a full travel platform, and I help them build out their their talent and operations plan. So I think we're all pretty clear as to the gap, not only in the tech talent pool, but in diversifying it. So I'm going to go over this pretty quickly. So in terms of strategy, I always think about steps to roll out. And the first one is that if you don't have your C-level board on the ground with you, it's going to be very hard for you to be successful. So the last company I worked for was Triple Lift, and it was a all-white foundational board. And we had several conversations about why this was even important before we could move forward on the plan. Next up is surveying your team. So you probably already have diverse people on your team, and you can't do it by yourself, right? I was an HR department of one, and I'm sure there are some people in the room who are there, so feel free to come speak to me after. It's pretty unnerving. You have to find your ambassadors. And that's what this conference is all about, is finding your ambassadors, because I'm pretty sure everyone in this room is already on board here, but it's taking it and going the next step and imparting the change. After that is selecting your action. So you need to determine the best strategy for your team, for your mission, and follow through. So in terms of talent, you, first of all, are having candidates self-select out right away on your job description. Please raise your hand if you have ever looked at a job description and went, those qualifications are too high, so I'm not even going to apply. Yeah, okay. So like, what if you were like, there's 50% I can do on that job description, so I'm still gonna apply? A few, okay. Usually, as soon as there's doubt that you have a partial amount that you can't do, you just don't apply. Specifically, in the women that I talk to all the time, they self-select out. So how do you avoid that as a hiring manager? Well, cater your job descriptions to be inclusive, right? So, I skipped a step here, which is complete a census internally. I kind of talked about that before. Look at your actual percentages and where you need to improve. But I'll talk in my next slides about how tactically to change your job descriptions, because my former background was an English lit professor. And then you also need to redesign your marketing. And I don't just mean like put pictures of minorities on your page, but like bring your minorities to events such as these to talk about your company and why it's a great place to work and why it's actually inclusive. We'll get into that too. And this is the stat I was talking about. So 100% of women will not apply for a job if they doubt. And that was published quite a while ago. Oh, some reverb here. And I liked the stat that talked a little bit more about why. So I didn't think they would hire me since I didn't meet the qualifications, and I didn't want to set myself up for failure. And I think you guys can probably relate to that. So here's how you neutralize your job descriptions. Here's a list of masculine denotated words and feminine denotated words. If I talk more about working on a team that's collaborative, I'm probably going to hit more people that are in this room. Here's a company description that's feminine. We are a community of engineers who have effective relationships with many satisfied clients. Masculine, we are a dominant engineering firm, right? It looks like it's an aggressive place to work. Another thing that I couldn't stand, especially that happens a lot in tech startups, is we use this terminology. We want A players, and we have a playbook, and all these sports analogies. I never played sports. I was always a choir geek and a nerd, and that does not relate to me whatsoever. So I don't want to join a startup that has a ping pong table and a lot of beer. You know, I probably want to join a startup with a book club, right? So, and I'm sure you guys can identify there. So it's like building this community of inclusion, not only to once you hire them, but to acquire and retain your employees. So this is where I used to work, and this is their website. It's also a very good place to work. If you are looking for a development job, I would recommend it highly. And as you can see, it's a much more friendly environment page. And they actually have a strong minority population there. And these people are amazing. They still work there. And you can kind of learn about them. So they're the faces now of the company rather than just somebody in a picture. They have a voice. Okay, after you publish your job description, so you need to train your hiring team. Okay, there are so many subconscious things that we do, like, hey guys, we should do this, right? That automatically make us feel excluded from the conversation. So, I mean, literally, there are people who look at pictures and like on LinkedIn, and then they don't select the candidate. Or there are people that look at your name and they're like, they literally just, they might not even do it intentionally, by the way, and they stop looking at your resume. So it's important that you identify these before you even bring candidates in the room, or else you've wasted your efforts on the sourcing, which is a lot of your work as a recruiter. So then it's changing your sourcing, which I'll go into more in depth, and then you really, as a leadership, need to commit to a certain minimum % of minority applicants that you're going to interview. They have to be qualified too. So it's not just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get that one designated black female woman in the room. Like, no, she's gonna be qualified and just as qualified as that white male person in the room, and we are going to base their interview on their skills assessment, not on the color of their skin or their gender. So what's a cultural fit is also a big pet peeve of mine. It's such a trending thing in startups, like this big world culture. A cultural fit should be based on your mission, your vision, and your values, not on who I want to go get a beer with after work, right? This is such a major problem, and I've walked into so many startups, and I'm like, so how do you gauge a cultural fit? And they can't answer me. That's a problem. So it's, don't go on your gut feeling, and also don't judge someone if they wear a suit to your startup and you're wearing jeans all day. You know, that's what they were trained to do to come to an interview. Getting more into tech, so in terms of inclusive tech interviews, why do you need to use a whiteboard? Do you actually do that on a daily basis? Because I'm pretty sure in my tech company they don't. So basically we use a whiteboard to test learning and put people on the spot, but instead we could have them take the assessment home, and let's see, most developers actually think about the problem and want to solve it on their own time, and why are we judging them and staring at them? I mean, I personally would not be able to do that. I don't know about you. Also, like, make your questions about the subject matter, not about communicating about the tech, right? The technical portion of the interview is about literally the technical skills, right? You have cultural interviews and behavioral interviews for everything else. And who the hell is your interview panel, right? Have they been trained in how to interview? Because most people at startups have not. Demographically are younger, you know, which is also a huge mistake that I see is I've had a young HR person come up to me and say, oh, I don't want to hire another HR person who's twice my age because they're going to be in combat with me. I said, in combat with you? Wouldn't you want a different opinion to bounce your ideas off of? And if there's years of experience to garner from, why wouldn't you want the strongest player on your team? So where the hell do we find everybody? Where do we find these diverse candidates? I was told to reduce this slide. So use Boolean searches, women in tech, join diversity groups on and offline and actually actively participate in them, attend events like this that are great, and can talk about this event with people who wouldn't normally come, right? That's the problem with the audience is like, I'm preaching to people who believe in this already. Where's everybody else that doesn't, right? So include your minorities in your career marketing, target non-Ivy League schools. I didn't go to an Ivy League school because I couldn't afford it and I didn't want to be in debt. That doesn't mean I didn't have a 4.0 in my master's degree, right? That doesn't mean that I didn't work 60 hours a week to put myself through undergrad and was alone since I was 18, right? Like there's different types of candidates out there. It drives me nuts that we only go after a select few who can afford and access that type of level of education. Sponsor venue space and hire from tech boot camps. You know, that's a thing. My students come from these backgrounds. They absolutely went to school and didn't value the education they had. Some of them even have a computer science degree and didn't think it was enough to get them the skills. They weren't getting hired. So what did they do? They went out there, they devoted 9 hours a week in classroom, 15 to 20 hours a week outside of the classroom, busting their butts to get to that competency level that they needed to be to get hired. So consider them. Don't just write them off as, oh, this is an alternative learning program. Well, this is an alternative learning program that was more accessible to other people. I talked a little bit about retention, but this is another thing, is great. We've now changed our numbers. We have a strong percent of minorities in the workforce, but where are they? They're not in leadership positions. So how can they even impart change? So if you don't find them qualified to be the directors and the VPs and the C-level suite of your organization, then why aren't you building a road path to get them there? Because obviously they have other ideas and their experiences are going to garner more information to make you differentiate in the market. So get them there, train them to be there, or hire them or recruit towards those levels so that you can continue to maintain it. At this stage of my career, I actually want to go work where there's a woman in leadership. Because guess what? She's been through things like I have as well. And mentor them. So not only these lines of training and talent development, but mentorship, partner people together. I don't mind getting partnered with a white male as long as he and I are on the same page and want to get to the same mission. That's also something. So this is where you can find me. I'll be here for the rest of the day and definitely encourage you to come up to me and ask questions. I love this space, you know, and if you just want to nerd out with me about underrepresented female writers on the literary canon, that's also my background. But thank you very much.